Hey everyone, welcome to Secrets Behind the Stars. All the details are right here, so stay with us until the end, and don't forget to subscribe and share if you enjoy the story. The entertainment world has been buzzing non-stop, and at the center of the whirlwind, two names are once again being whispered with an intensity that feels impossible to ignore: Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu. The pair, whose on-screen chemistry has been mythologized by fans for years, suddenly found their private lives pulled into the spotlight after a quiet funeral changed the rhythm of everything around them. In the days that followed, rumors began to ripple through the industry. Barış, looking drained and solemn, reportedly left the gathering and, instead of going home alone, chose to retreat to Elçin's place. That single decision, intimate and private as it may sound, quickly turned into the spark that lit a week-long fire across social media feeds and celebrity forums. Those close to the actor say he has been shouldering a heavy emotional burden, the kind that settles into the bones and dulls the familiar brightness in his eyes. They insist that what happened after the funeral wasn't a calculated move or a press play, but a spontaneous reach for someone who knows him beyond the public mask. Sources claim that in a moment of candid honesty, he told trusted friends, "I'm going through a very difficult time, and having Elçin nearby helps me breathe again." It wasn't a plea for attention, just a rare admission that grief will sometimes push you toward the person who understands your silences. Almost immediately, the internet split into factions. On one side, fans argued that it was simply compassion, two colleagues leaning on each other when life is cruel. On the other, guesses blossomed into confident declarations, that this closeness signaled a turning point, a new chapter, maybe even a second act no one saw coming. And yes, the idea that he chose her home as a refuge seemed to fuel every theory. Witnesses claimed they noticed the subtle patterns, the same driver dropping him off at unusual hours, the same quiet corner cafe where they supposedly picked up takeaway late at night, the same guarded expressions whenever cameras caught them at a distance. Insiders repeat one theme over and over: Elçin's support has been steady, low-key, and deeply personal. The actress, usually measured and composed but always warm with those who know her well, was said to have widened her circle to include him in the most ordinary moments. Simple things, making tea, letting the television play in the background, reading in the same room without the need to talk, become, in times like this, a kind of shelter. Those gestures, invisible to the outside world, are exactly what loyal fans of the duo imagine when they think of comfort. As whispers grew louder, the story seemed to double back on itself. Some insisted that the decision to stay at her place wasn't a one-off but the beginning of a new rhythm, days blending into nights, the two of them creating a quiet routine when the outside world demanded answers. And then came the twist that sent timelines into overdrive: talk that, after a few days, the arrangement flipped. Speculation intensified after Elçin Sangu reportedly spent time at his place as well. It was as if each movement was being mapped in real time by people who wanted to solve a puzzle that might not even be a puzzle at all. Through it all, the tenor of their connection never felt chaotic from the inside, at least according to people who claimed to know. If anything, the change felt calming. Those who allegedly saw them up close described the way they took long drives, the way they avoided eye contact with cameras without darting away in panic, the way their conversations seemed steady, even when their faces were tired. The tenderness wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, and it was consistent, the sort of closeness that can exist between two people who have already carried each other through countless fictional storms and now found themselves standing in a real one. But the outside world never stays quiet for long. Photos began to surface, nothing scandalous, nothing explosive, but still enough to set off a domino effect. A sun-faded baseball cap pulled low as Barış stepped out to pick up a delivery, a soft, oversized sweater slipping down Elçin's shoulder as she trailed a few steps behind him, a blurred reflection in a lobby window that looked like two familiar silhouettes. Each image fueled a new round of captions and comments. Some begged the press to give them space, others demanded clarity, insisting that public figures owe the truth. Inevitably, particularly bold claims worked their way into the feed, implying more than the pictures actually showed. Friends of the pair, often speaking in that cautious, anonymous tone reserved for sensitive moments, offered a different picture. They say the loss hit Barış hard, and grief rarely moves in a straight line. He didn't want to face that first night alone. He needed someone who had known him before the accolades and the expectations, someone who could read his quiet. That person was Elçin. It said that he told his inner circle that having her nearby made the rooms feel less cold. And for her part, those same friends say, she simply refused to let him carry the weight by himself. What does this mean for them? For their careers? For the mythology that fans have created around their partnership? No one can say for certain. And yet, the narrative continues to build. Some argue that their bond has always been its own entity, an unmistakable thread that tied them together long after the cameras stopped rolling. Others insist that friendship is all this has ever been, and that grief simply made the friendship more visible. There is truth in both views. A bond like theirs can be many things at once, especially when private gestures are seen through the lens of public fascination. For days, television panels and gossip blogs returned to the same questions. Why her place? Why his place? Why now? And why, above all, the silence? The answer might be simpler than it seems. Silence is sometimes the only defense when feelings are raw and every word is bound to be dissected. Behind closed doors, it said, they set their own pace. He read messages of condolence and set his phone aside. She brewed coffee when the night stretched too long. They listened to music that didn't demand anything. When he became restless, they took late-night drives and left the radio on low, letting the city hum around them until the world felt softer. At one point, a quote began to circulate in the echo chamber of unnamed sources, one that shaped the tone of the story more than any photo could. I'm going through a very difficult time, and having Elçin by my side gives me strength. The line did not come with a recording or a press release, only a telltale trail of whispers that felt familiar. Still, it resonated. Fans reposted it over and over, overlaying the words on fan edits and clips from past projects, drawing parallels between fiction and whatever this is. A second wave of speculation rose when a car registered to Elçin was reportedly seen at his building more than once as dawn approached. Some claimed she had moved essentials back and forth, a quiet swapping of clothes, a familiar scarf appearing in 2 different neighborhoods within days. The narrative tilted, then steadied, then tilted again, as if everyone watching was trying to catch their balance while the ground shifted beneath them. If the first chapter of this week was Barış seeking refuge with her, the second was Elçin returning the gesture, showing up where he sleeps and making the unfamiliar feel lived in. There were, of course, calmer voices among the noise. They reminded everyone that people grieve in pairs, in groups, in the company of those who know how to sit in silence without filling it with questions. They reminded everyone that this might be neither the beginning nor the end of anything, but a pause, a hand on a shoulder, the kind of closeness that doesn't need a label. It's a fair point, one that rarely wins the day on forums built to amplify certainty, but it's a point worth hearing nonetheless. Meanwhile, the press waited for an official word, some crisp statement to lift the fog. Would they confirm? Would they deny? Would they sidestep entirely? It's easy to forget that statements have their own cost. Confirming invites a level of inspection that can be brutal, denying can feel disingenuous when emotions are plainly visible, sidestepping encourages speculation to flourish. This is the delicate dance of public life, a choreographed step between honesty and self-protection. If you were to trace the timeline from the outside, you'd see a pattern that looks almost ordinary despite the attention. A funeral where faces were drawn and eyes stayed low. A car pulling up to a familiar building, a brief pause before the door closes. Days of shared quiet and late-night drives. A second address, a second door, a second attempt at sleep. Through it all, 2 people who know each other deeply moved carefully through a moment that kept unfolding, never quite finishing its sentence. And yet, curiosity keeps spooling out, thread by thread. Fans remain glued to updates, scanning for signs, taking heart from the simple idea that in the worst moments, we reach for the people who make us feel less alone. The most compelling version of this story isn't scandalous. It's human. It's a portrait of 2 professionals who built a connection in front of millions and learned, perhaps inadvertently, how to lean on that connection when real life asked for it. What happens next is anyone's guess. Maybe a quiet clarification will arrive in a few lines on social media, careful and kind. Maybe there will be no statement at all, just a gradual settling back into separate routines as the sorrow softens. Or maybe the closeness we're seeing becomes part of something longer, something that grows out of late-night conversations and shared coffee and the kind of trust that doesn't need a spotlight to thrive. For now, all we really know is this: grief drew them closer in a way that felt natural to both of them. The rest is speculation, as it has always been. But as the days pass, expect the images, the anonymous tips, the carefully worded, according to a source, lines to continue. Expect the tabloids to circle and the fans to defend. Expect the truth to remain someplace quiet, in rooms where no one is filming, in moments that are small enough to fit in one hand and warm enough to live there for a long time. We'll keep watching, we'll keep listening, and when there's something real to share, you'll hear it here first. Until then, let's remember that the soft parts of life are the ones worth protecting. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Secrets Behind the Stars and share it with a friend who's been following every twist. We'll see you in the next one.